John Doyle from Optics EQ, and today's video race of the day, I'm going to look at using OptixNOTES keywords again. In this case, we've been using a lot of green keywords, but today I'm going to look for red keywords, and red is a negative, obviously. So what I'm trying to look for is horses who will probably take money who've had red keywords in their previous form. So I'm going to go over to Rod and click that and bring it up, and then instead of in the alerts doing GW1, which we've been doing in other videos, we're going to say RW1. And what that means is we want a red keyword in the last race. So we got a couple of horses had multiple keywords. So again, on the morning line, I'm looking for horses that are short. So I want anything kind of less than or equal to 5 to 2, which is 2.5 to 1. So that gives me 3 runners, and they're all at Fairgrounds. It's December the 20th, so Fairgrounds is actually running this holiday week, kind of a schedule change. And so we have 3 horses, one in race 1, one in race 2, one in race 5. The one in race 1, I'm not going to look at because that if you just quickly look at the plot in that race, you got an entry. So I don't want to evaluate that one just for the fact that the horse is coupled, and then that'll make it convoluted. But we have one in race 2 that I want to look at, and then one in race 5. So let's start with race 2. We're going to go over that one. Let's look at the plot for that race. Okay, so we have a plot fit of red. And if you look at this plot, I always tell people what jumps out at you. Everyone would say the 7 looks like a standout on this plot, right? It looks like it's got a kind of big pace advantage. The problem is the 7 is coming off a 661-day layoff. So his recent form is old, very old. So he's hard to evaluate in this case. So putting that aside, let's look at the favorite, the one that we talked about. He ran a hard in his last race, okay? So, and look at where he stands. He's in quadrant 2, not bad, but again, his run style is more of a presser closer, and with this kind of lack of contention in this race and lack of speed rating, that kind of is another negative on him. I looked at the summary up here in the plot in the V bars. He fits very well on pace. In terms of the way he plots, it's okay in terms of statistically, and his speed is very good. It's above a lot of these, with the exception of maybe the 7. But the class, he's just a little bit below in class, not much. It's kind of neutral. So again, no, that's another thing to look at as we go through this. So I just kind of look at this horse again. He's kind of run an 81, 82 before. So, he's capable, just don't like this hard. And here's the big thing about this hard. Coming off 11-day layoff after the hard. That's concerning. So there might be a regression here with the quick turnaround. So let's take a shot. Now, who do we take our shot with? It's a tough race. Let me just go quickly back to the plot so we can look at this. I just would probably want someone more to the left just because there's contention. And let's assume I'm going to skip on the 7 just off the layoff. Just don't know what we're going to get back on a horse off that kind of layoff. I would say the 2, 4, and 6 are the horses I want to kind of evaluate. And let's look at them. So let's look at the 2. Before we do that, I'm going to look at the last 45 days just to see speed figure wise. Looks like the 2 and the 6 look pretty good in terms of speed figures. They have to come up a little bit. I mean, if we expect the regression on the 1, that should put the 2 and even the 3 somewhat there. Okay, so let's look at this a little bit more closely. 2 is kind of interesting in the sense that he's kind of turning back, and we have this keyword projection shorter. So that's what we thought after this race. This horse needs shorter. And his 74 is competitive, you can see. So if we can get some upside, he's run in the 80s before 81 and 82. One was sprinting a 79. So he's got some back figures. So with improvement, we can expect this horse to run in the probably high 70s, low 80s, which would be good enough to win. The one thing I jumped out, I just don't go too much on this generally, but when I see something, again, I'm looking for exceptions. So I looked at the workout report on the number 2. Found it a little bit interesting. His last 2 workouts look like pretty good. I mean, he had a blowout over this track and then another really good gate work on this track. So I thought those were real positive, especially for horses at this level and working out like that. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Um, since the fact that he's never been on this track before, maybe he's going to like it. So that's a horse to kind of look at. I thought the two, especially at 12-1 in a race like this, was interesting. And then the other ones I mentioned, I guess the three we could look at. This is a horse that's dropping. Um, it looks like he can do some, but the only thing I don't like about him in this constituent of his odds. But um, look, if you're trying to beat the favorite, he's kind of viable. The four, same thing. I think there's another horse. It looks a little bit below on speed figures. Hasn't run in those 80s and high 70s as much. So he's a little bit below on speed figures. And then the other one we looked at was the six. What I don't like about the six, even though he looks okay on the form, was um, his run style. If you go back to the plot, talked about this before. His run style doesn't really match up. He's an EP, likes to be close, and looks like, I don't know. This race is a little muddled, so I wouldn't go on it. But look, the way I would look at this race is let's try to beat the one, two, do more evaluating of the 2, 3, 4, and 6. But those would look like the horses that would be contenders in here. And just because of the price, 2 looks a little bit interesting at 12-1. Okay. I'm going to go back to the rod again. We're going to go to race 5, and we're going to look at the number 6 in that race because he's the horse that we thought looked vulnerable. He looks okay on the plot. He's got a nice big square. But you see, he had 2 races back. He had kicked back, and we thought turf would be the better surface. But then he ran a good race. And there's a couple of things. Tactic in that race, that means he got a good ride, good trip. He had a very hot jockey, trainer, whatever in that race. So, they were going all guns that race, full guns. And he got the flow in that race. So a lot of things in his favor. I don't see him getting the flow as much today with the contention being average. You could just see the plot. It looks like, you maybe the 5 looks okay just from a pace perspective. So he's a contender. And I thought the other horse that looked interesting in here was the number 3, Dusty Boy. I'm just going to go flip to him. Okay, so he had tactics minus in his last race. And if we just pull the extended note, he was slightly against the flow. So he made a move against the flow and kind of flattened out. But he's had some races here that would be competitive. He'd run an 81. So that would put him in right in the mix in terms of figures. So he's capable on figures. So I thought he looked a little bit interesting. Second off a layoff, 69 days. You can see this is days since last race. So he was kind of a little bit interesting. And I mentioned the 5, just for the fact that he looked like he had a pace advantage. Now he's second off a layoff too. He's getting back to dirt, where he's run some good races. Depends how the track's playing. Looks like the distance is a little iffy with him, going to 8.32, but another horse that can kind of figure into the exotics at least and maybe hang on for a piece. So I'm just going to go to the 6 who looked really good on the plot. Yeah, I mean, he just ran that huge figure. It looked like he got a benefit of it, and thinking that he might be better for the turf anyway. I just think that's a horse that maybe we can take a shot against. Maybe he regresses off that big effort and runs more like what he's been running. But he could just be an improving horse. You got to figure out. But he may be a little bit too short and might be worth taking a shot at. He's 5-2 in the morning line, so it's good to think. But just hopefully showed you how to use red keywords to your advantage. Looking for horses that will be over bet, and that's the idea behind optics. So a little bit of a change in terms of green versus red and what it all means in Optics EQ. Visit us at our website at optixeq.com. Subscribe to our video channel here, and hopefully you have a great day.